Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Notes and Quotes podcast, or welcome to the Notes and Quotes podcast. If this is your first time here, I'm really happy to have you here. Welcome to the community. And today is going to be an interesting topic because whenever I'm really great at talking about, intimate, uncomfortable things in, personal circles. Like I'm usually an open book. Like I'm really it's easy for me to talk about things like sex and things like intimacy, other taboo topics like money and stuff like that. I'm really calm talking about it, but then talking about it on the podcast sometimes makes me a little bit nervous. Just a little bit nervous because I'm always wondering who's listening. Who's out there listening to me? Is it family members? Is it, old teachers? I don't know. But today's going to be okay because I think this is going to be a really important topic to touch on because I didn't even know about this stuff. I'm always learning about the ways in which climate change impacts our lives and how it intersects with so many other different things, like the economy, social justice, your mental health, all of these things. But I did not know that climate change can affect your sex life. That's mind blowing to me when I saw that information. So I, of course, did some research and now I'm going to tell you guys all the dirty details about how climate change can impact your sex life and what we should do about it and also why we should care about it. Okay, let's get into it. So let's start off with the quote of the day. The quote of the day is coming from the Lancet Medical Journal, who says, "Climate change is the greatest threat to global public health in the 21st century." Now, this I knew. This I knew because obviously climate change impacts our health in so many different ways. I think actually a lot of people don't really know. And when I was working in climate, it was primarily in advocating for the intersection between climate and health. And just to give you like a little overview of how climate change impacts your overall health. If we think about air quality, we can think about the ways that that impacts our respiratory system and our lungs. It gives you greater risk of asthma, it gives you greater risk of other really bad respiratory issues. If we think about heat waves, we can think about what that does for our blood pressure and our stress levels and our heart health. So that's just a quick jump, a little like toe tip into how climate change impacts our physical health. And then obviously there's the mental health impacts as well, with just the stress and worry, and then the impact of natural disasters on people who are displaced. All those things. It's a very thick topic, which I actually feel like I might get a guest to talk about with because that's something that would be really interesting to dig into. But right now we're talking about the impact of climate on your sex life. So, those days where it can just be really hot? Like if you live in a tropical country, you know for sure that climate change has been really heavily impacting the heat waves and the heat levels in tropical countries to degrees that are just absolutely unheard of and terrifying to live in. But even if you're anywhere around the globe, you've been experiencing rising temperatures. And when you're just so hot and you're sweaty and think about how it makes you feel when you're having a really hot day. You feel sweaty, you feel tired, you feel like uncomfortable, you just don't really want to do much of anything. You just want to like strip down and go in the shower and just be cool and relax. Like you don't want to be doing anything. And that includes intimacy. And that's not just like a personal mental thing, like, oh, when you're hot and sweaty, you don't feel like going and having sex, which is common, but then also it actually changes your body's urges and your body's ability to feel desire to have sex, your libido. So there's a lot of science in this. There's a lot of science in this entire topic because we're going to talk also about how it impacts your reproductive health as well and not just your libido. But I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm very passionate about this because when I figured this out, I was like, that is crazy. But anyway, let me go into it. With the science of heat and libido, our bodies are hardwired to prioritize cooling and keeping one basal temperature. Am I using basal right? I might not be using basal right, so let me scratch that. But one constant temperature or a range of temperature for our body, just keeping our bodies cool is the priority, right? So that inadvertently means that when you're hot, your body prioritizes cooling you down. And it will take energy from your body to prioritize that. So that means that it will take energy away from arousal. It will take energy away from anything else that you're doing and prioritize cooling you down, which is why you end up feeling kind of tired if you're outside and you're really hot and you're doing all of these different things. You start to feel like you have less energy to do them because your body is taking energy from you to prioritize cooling your body down so that you don't, die of heat stroke. And we feel those kinds of things with the different reactions that we have to heat, sweat, dehydration, panting, general discomfort. Those are the things that indicate that our body is trying to cool us down and taking energy away from things. So during that time, it's really difficult for somebody to feel aroused or feel in the mood to have sex. So that's the one like mini impact that we have. But I promise you guys, it gets deeper. Also, with the general discomfort thing, it's not like only happening in the day. The increased temperatures are also happening at night. It's hotter at night. But when you're hot at night, it deprives you of sleep. It's really difficult to sleep in a really hot environment. I think anybody can attest to that. You need to have the right temperature conditions for you to feel comfort. And then if you don't have sleep, you then feel tired and you feel lethargic and then you're more exhausted. And when you're more exhausted, you're less inclined to go, get frisky and be in the mood. If you want the real like science version, so I'm like here looking at my research that I've got noted down and everything. So sleep deprivation can also increase cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. The bad hormone. I mean, it's not really a bad hormone because there's a reason why there's cortisol and there's good stress and bad stress, but it increases cortisol, your stress hormone, and lowers testosterone. Sleep deprivation lowers testosterone and increases cortisol. I had no idea about that. I knew about the sleep deprivation increasing cortisol and, your overall stress because when I'm tired, I'm more stressed, I'm more exhausted, I'm more moody. But I didn't know that for guys it lowers your testosterone, which then, as a result, further reduces your libido. Like, there's so many different sneaky ways in which climate change is impacting every single aspect of our lives, literally everything, to the point where there are areas like this that I had no idea it was impacting, but now I've learned and I'm sharing it with you. So let's continue. So now you're in a hot environment, you're dealing with sleep deprivation, you're feeling exhausted, you're feeling moody, you're feeling like, stressed and you're not in the mood. Your body's prioritizing cooling you down, and sex is the last thing on your to-do list right now. But that's not all. The research actually suggests that increasing temperatures from climate change actually reduces your sperm count as well. If there are any girls on here, make sure to go tell your guy friends that climate change might be reducing their sperm count because I think it's important for them to know. And if you're a guy and you're listening on here, let me tell you a little bit more about it. So, scientists suggest that excessive heat exposure can reduce sperm motility and your sperm count. Higher temperatures have been linked to lower testosterone levels, which we said, which directly impacts your sexual desire. And then also, of course, like we said before, your sperm count is getting lower as well. So that impacts your reproductive health, your ability to, have kids. And that also impacts your urge to even do the act to have kids. That's then impacting your own future. And it makes me stop and think, like, how nature is all connected, everything works in a system, it's all flowing in a very organized, intentional way. I tend to stop and think to myself, okay, so we have an overpopulation problem, and this might be an out of pocket idea, this might be something controversial, but we have an overpopulation problem, which is also impacting, our environment and leading to an increase in climate change. Is climate change kind of trying to balance things out by reducing sperm count, then reducing the number of kids we have in the future so that it kind of fixes the overpopulation problem? I don't know. That might be a stretch, but maybe I've watched too many dystopian movies. I don't know. But I just find that personally interesting. So that's the science on that. Now, for the ladies, you guys, we are not left out of these impacts. Menstrual cycles, our favorite thing, we love a menstrual cycle. Heavy emphasis on sarcasm, please note. Heat stress can disrupt your hormonal balance. Shocker. I feel like everything disrupts a woman's hormonal balance, honestly. We're so like our hormones are the most sensitive thing. It's the most annoying thing. But heat stress can disrupt hormonal balance, leading to irregular menstrual cycles. So, you know how annoying it is when if you have like a period tracker app or if you track your period at any, using anything, how annoying it is when your period doesn't come when you think it's going to come. If it comes super early, that's like an unpleasant surprise. If it comes super late, that's some unpleasant stress. You know, why do we now have something else that's now disrupting our menstrual cycles? So we know as girls that there are many different things that can disrupt your menstrual cycle. Sometimes it's stress, sometimes it's your diet, sometimes it's your level of exercise. It can be a whole host of things. Now add to the list the extreme heat levels that we will be experiencing and are experiencing with climate change. That can also impact your cycle. So our cycle is being impacted, and then also excessive heat increases inflammation across the body. It makes your blood vessels dilate more, and then you just have overall increased inflammation, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure. Let me just do a quick little Google search. Right? Yes, exactly what I thought. So, and I don't know if this is a viable source, guy. I'm pretty sure it actually is a viable source, but www.heart.org, which is actually, I think, a scientific site, says that exposure to high heat may impair the cells of the immune system that remember specific viruses and germs and overproduce signaling molecules that leads to inflammation. So we have increased inflammation across the body, is what I'm trying to tell you, which then leads, by the way, to exacerbating PMS symptoms. So not only is our cycle going to be irregular, but it means that the impacts of our cycle, our symptoms that we experience during our cycle, that pain, that moodiness, that uncomfortableness, is going to be worse, making intimacy less appealing. Because who wants to have sex when they're feeling shit? That's not, that once again reduces your sexual urges. It's all coming together, guys. And obviously, your reproductive health, while it's a personal issue, while it's, an individual thing, it's also a public health concern because if reproductive health is impacted by multiple people across the globe, it then reduces our fertility rates globally, which for overpopulation, that could be a good thing. But in many ways, that's also a bad thing because there are many countries like the UK, like Barbados as well, who have an extremely old population. And while we love our grandparents and we love our old people, it's not the best because a lot of them are retired and we need young people to carry on society, of course. So, reproductive health, while it's a personal issue, it's also a public health concern and can have really long term societal consequences that cannot be overlooked. And also, you want to have a good time. You want to be able to be intimate. You want to be able to have your own sex life and stuff. So, this is a concern. And I think it's important to know because some people tell me, oh, I feel like the reason I don't listen to climate change stuff or the reason I don't follow politics, the reason I don't listen to the news is because it's always such negative stuff and I can't personally handle it. Like I don't want to be listening to negative things all the time and I don't 100% get that. I am the same. Sometimes I have to take a step back from all of this stuff because it's too much and you should prioritize your own mental well-being first. However, I do think it's very important to be aware of these things. It's important to be educated because a lack of education leads to ignorance, which leads to furthering the problems that we already have in our society. So it's very important for us to be educated on things like this, how climate change intersects with every single sector of our lives, including our sexual and reproductive health. I think that that's an important thing to educate yourself on. So that's why I thank you for listening to this. And also, again, with that ignorance, which, by the way, is innocent ignorance because there's not enough education in our public school systems about the intersection of climate and health. So, a lot of us think about extreme heat levels and the impacts of climate in terms of natural disasters and how natural disasters can impact our society and our infrastructure and all of these different, very obvious surface level impacts of climate change. But we don't realize that the impacts go a lot deeper than this into our daily lives, into our relationships, even into the lives of people who have never experienced a natural disaster, who may not be experiencing the extreme heat levels right now, who may not be experiencing rising sea temperatures, rising sea levels. We don't understand the intersection, and that needs to change. Which is why I'm here to educate you guys, especially because a lot of the young people that, listen to this podcast are the incoming generation and they need to know these things for their own well being. So, on a brighter note, what can be done? What can we do about these health concerns? What can we do to protect our sex lives? So, there's a lot of solutions. There's a lot of solutions that are ongoing. There's a lot of things that can be done. And there's things that I would like you guys to know about because you could promote them in your own personal lives. There's two levels of solutions. There's the grand level, which is, societal change, and then there is the individual level. So let's talk about the grand level first. More green spaces, more turning away from fossil fuels, divesting in fossil fuels, um, and focusing on changing our systems to rely less on things that are detrimental to our planet, focusing on more green technology, which does exist and which has been figured out. The scientists have figured it out. We are not in the figuring it out stage anymore. We are now in the financing and actualization stage. And I think there needs to be more investments and more checking yes in the question mark box to that green technology that helps cool our planet, that helps us continue to be able to use the things that we're comfortable using, but having it be fueled by green technology. And there's some practices that we just need to shy away from. So, for example, the way that we build out cities, we have had a habit, especially in the Western world, of building out cities in a way where you have to use transportation. It's very hard to live in a walkable city nowadays. Like if you take my own home country, Barbados, for example, I will always say it's almost impossible for you to live in Barbados and not have a car. Yes, there's public transportation, there's the bus. One, the bus is not reliable. And two, it can be overcrowded and a bit of a bad system. And three, it's just easier to use a car. And not that it's easier, for your own personal convenience, but it's just easier in terms of getting your life together and like getting to work on time, getting to school on time, going to the grocery store, just doing anything. You kind of have to have a car because of how the country is built out. We don't have that very many walkable areas. And it's also the same for even larger Western countries as well. The US is one of those countries where almost everyone has a car. Well, not almost everyone, but a large population of the country has a car because of the way that the country is built out. We need to have more areas where it's easier for people to walk around, where public transportation is easily accessible and it's reliable so that we have less carbon emissions being, put out into our atmosphere. That's the first thing. So city planning is one thing that is extremely important and would help reduce the heat levels that we are experiencing. And also increasing more green spaces too. If you have more green spaces, it not only improves people's mental health, because green spaces are extremely important for your mental health. I did this in a previous episode. I figured this out myself. The power of nature on your psyche is crazy. And it's also obviously better for the environment. You know, trees and whatnot, guys. We know that trees are good for the environment. We know that greenery is good for the environment because it is the environment. And then, once again, on that grand scheme, all of these things come down to international politics. They come down to local politics. They come down to politics in general and what we choose to prioritize in political advancements and in our governance, whether it's focusing on profits or whether it's focusing on people. And too often we've been putting profit over people, and that needs to stop. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole other topic. That's a whole other episode. Right now, let's jump over to the individual level. So, there's lots of things that you can do on the individual level. And one thing about me is I really hate blaming individuals for climate change. Yes, we are all impacting the climate and we're all, there's ways that we can do more and there's ways that we can do better in our lives to better our environment. But I think it's really toxic to start blaming individuals for every little thing that they're doing wrong because, one, they've grown up knowing only one way, and a greener way has not been normalized, and that's what we're working to normalize now. But also, the major impact that we are having on our climate comes from large corporations, comes from large governance, and comes from impacts that, even if a whole country of individuals were to change to, composting everything and constantly recycling and constantly, only shopping from sustainable brands, which would be absolutely incredible and would definitely have an impact, by the way, guys. It would have a major impact, absolutely. But we'd still be in a climate crisis because we need corporations to change. So, this is not me doing individual blaming. This is me giving you solutions to help adapt in the current climate crisis that we are in. One, the most obvious one, staying hydrated. Making sure that you help your body be cool, because your body is constantly, as we said at the beginning of the episode, trying to keep yourself cool, trying to cool you down and taking energy away from you so that it can do that to protect you. Maybe help it out a little bit. Drink more water, stay hydrated so that your body doesn't have to work as hard and you have more energy for the activities you want to do, right? Optimizing your own home's temperature, your bedroom temperature. If you need to get a fan, get a fan. If you need to do some natural cooling solutions like, opening a window, airing out your rooms and stuff, then absolutely do that to figure out different ways in which you can bring your temperature down so you feel like you're more in the mood. And also just be mindful of it. I think there's something to be said for when you're aware of something. So you for example, if you know that you have been dealing with something, like, you've been dealing with an ailment, you're upset about the fact that you don't know why your leg is hurting, or you don't know why you're so erratic and your moods are changing all the time. The level of comfort and relief that you feel when you get a diagnosis is something that cannot be understated. it There is something to be said for being educated and knowing the why of why something might be happening. So it might not just be that, oh, there's something wrong with you and now your sex drive is so low, like what's happened to you, like why is this happening. It might not be you, it might be climate change. And I know that's such a weird thing to say because it's just something to wrap your head around, but there's something to be said for understanding the reason why we might be feeling this way and the impacts that climate change actually has on our sex drive and on our libido. So I would say make sure you are aware of the ways in which climate change and the temperatures and the environment might be impacting your mood and take the steps to actually actively change that. There's obviously other more obvious ways: wearing more breathable clothing, try and wear black a little less. I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I'm wearing all black right now, but wear black a little less because black absorbs heat. And so there's other ways in which you can, on an individual level, help yourself adapt to the rising temperatures. And then if you want to help mitigate the rising temperatures, I don't think I need to even say all of the different individual things that you could be doing because we've heard them for years. Recycling, shopping less from fast fashion, um, using public transportation when you can, just trying overall to reduce your carbon footprint and be a good person. Don't litter. All of these different things in which you are ways in which you can reduce your carbon footprint, and then by that same token help our planet and help reduce the rising temperatures. We know this. So just, be a good person and do it. Okay. So that is all I have for you guys today. I feel like today was a bit of a shorter episode and also a bit more of a Debbie Downer, but I think it was something that needed to be said. And it's just another reminder that climate change is not just some far off issue. It's something that we are living and experiencing every single day right now. We are seeing the impacts right now. And even though you might not be feeling it yourself, which I would be shocked if you're not. But if you are not feeling it yourself right now, just know that it is impacting you in ways that you might not realize. And it's also impacting many different people around the world in terrifying ways. And it's something that we should care about. And it can impact us in very personal ways, like our sex life. And I'm really happy I was able to teach you guys this, if I'm teaching it to you or help you in any way. Okay, so that's it, guys. I will see you again next Tuesday. And thank you so much for listening to this episode. It's really such a joy to come on here and talk to you guys. I love it so much. I have so much fun talking to you, even if it's, you know, about depressing topics. It's just such a joy. And if you want, as I said at the beginning, you can check out our socials. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube, video exclusively on YouTube. That's where you'd be watching this. Please, please, please go fill out the listener survey. It really helps us know whether we need to be doing more for the podcast, whether we're doing okay, what you're interested in hearing about, and who our community is. So anyway, it takes literally less than a minute. But I love you guys so much, and I will let you get on with the rest of your day, night, afternoon, evening, morning, whatever it is. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again later. Bye.